At this moment, before we proceed, I would like to take a moment to pray for our sick mu'mineen and mu'minat in our community. There is a big request to read Amman Yujib for our brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the fastest shifa, Ya Rabbal Alameen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. And also to remember all our marhumin and marhumat. May Allah be pleased with all of them, especially al-marhum that we buried today, Al-Hajj Hassan ibn Hassan Muhammad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with his soul. Surah al-Mubarakat al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawm al-Din. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Before we proceed to our majlis tonight, along with tafsir, we would like to continue with our ahkam as we promised. And we started with what we call al-muftirat. But before I come to muftirat, there is a question that a lot of mu'mineen and mu'minat ask many times. What is kafara and what is fidya? When kafara becomes kafara and when does fidya becomes fidya? The difference between kafara and fidya is very simple. When we say the word kafara, is always about breaking fast unlawful, which means a person to break their fast in a way that Islam did not allow. Now, if that happens, then the rule that applies there is called kafara. Example, I am healthy, I should be fasting, and I can fast, but I choose not to fast. Why? I don't want to. Now the penalty here is called kafara. If I don't fast for one day or whatever days I choose not to, now every day there is a kafara for that particular day for not fasting. Because I chose not to fast for no good reason. That's one. Now, sometimes no, I fast, but I decided to break my fast for no good reason. There's a difference between I didn't fast or I did fast, but I chose to break my fast for no good reason. How? For example, I said, today I just failed to break my fast. I was fasting all day long during the daytime. I want to break my fast. Why? I don't feel like continuing my fast. Now, this reason, if I do break my fast on this reason, I don't feel like, I don't want to continue. Now, there is kafara on breaking my fast intentional. Now, this is where the kafara applies. Now, if, let's say, for example, I broke my fast intentionally, all right, but on the reason that is excused in Islam. What is excused? Traveling. All right, I'm traveling, and because of that traveling, I didn't fast. Oh no, I'm traveling. I was fasting during the day. Then I found that I have to travel before Zuhr. Because if you travel after Zuhr, you have to keep your fast. Now, I'm traveling before Zuhr. And also, I'm not kathiru safar, which means a person who travels a lot. Now, how do you define kathiru safar? How do I know? I am in the category of kathiru safar if you travel in a month 10 times or more. Less, you're not kathiru safar. From 10 and above, you fall into the category of kathiru safar. And if you're kathiru safar, doesn't matter. You leave at 9 in the morning, during the daytime. As any time you travel, you have to observe your fast. Doesn't matter how many days I'm going to stay there. As long as you travel, even if it's for one day, you still have to make sure that you observe your fast. That's if you fall into the line of kathiru safar. Now, or I broke my fast because I'm sick, so I couldn't fast. There is no kafara. I broke my fast because I wasn't feeling well. There is no kafara. Now, but there are two situations in this. One situation is, there is some situation you don't have to even pay fidya. You don't have to. What do you have to do? You have to pay the days you broke your fast. For example, I'm working in a company. I was fasting today. I travel a lot, yes. But not a lot to the point where I travel 10 times in a month. I came to the office. I was told, Mr. So-and-so, you have to travel today. I'm fasting. But I'm not kathiru safar. Now what should I do? I have to break my fast. Because I'm not traveling afternoon. So I have to break my fast. Now, if I do break my fast because I'm traveling for job-related issue or matters, here I don't have to pay fidya. What do you have to do? You have to do what we call qada only. Which means you wait until the month of Ramadan is over, you pick a time that is suitable for you, and you pay those days that you missed. Alright? Now some people ask, oh, but can I fast during the time of winter when it's short days, right? And it's not warm, hot? Oh yes, you can. When you break your fast during the month of Ramadan for the reason of traveling, job related, right? And you're not kathiru safar, now you have any time from this Ramadan till next Ramadan to pay. When do you want to pay it? It's up to you. You want to wait until the summer when it's hot and humid? It's up to you. Now, I want to do it during the winter when it's short, it's very short. That's fine. But you have to make sure that you pay it before the next Ramadan. So there's no fidya, there's only what? Qada. Now, but in some cases, there is fidya. And what is that? If a person happened to be sick, and the sickness is not something that the person is hoping for recovery. It's a sickness that I don't know. I might recover, but I don't know. Maybe 20 years from now, 10 years, I don't know. I can't fast this year, and I don't think I can fast next year. Then the rule of fidya applies. And what is the fidya? It's very easy. Fidya means feeding. Fidya, to feed. Feed home, the needy, poor person. Alright? So every day, I can feed a poor person for me not fasting. Because of my illness that happened to be a long-term illness. But if the illness is short-term, that I know that within 6 months I'll be okay, or within 5 months I can get back on my normal life schedule and I can fast, then you should do so. Then you don't have to pay fidya, and all you have to do is to wait. When you feel better, you fast the date that you missed in the name of qada. That is in that sense. Now, if the situation changes, like maybe I am thinking that I can fast, but it don't happen. Things got worse from time to time, then the rule changes from that point for you to do fidya. But how much is fidya? Let's say I can fast. Sometimes not me. I have an old lady who cannot fast. I have an old father who cannot fast, either because of age or because of illness. They too, if they can afford, they are to pay the fidya. If they can afford. Alright? Now, they cannot afford, but I want to pay for them. Is it wajib upon me as a child? No, it's not. But I want to pay for my mom or for my dad. Yes, you can. But you don't have to if your parents don't have their own money to pay for their own fidya. Because the Quran tells you, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ. From the word taqa, those who can afford. Those who have enough money to pay, then they should do so. Now, if they don't have, Islam says it's no wajib upon them. They don't have it. Then it's no any responsibility upon them. In some narration, they say what they should do is to say, Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu. That's all. That is, the rule is in terms of this. Now, coming back in terms of the ruling that we mentioned before, Muftirat al-Siyam, remember we mentioned about number 1, ta'ammudul akli wa shurub. That's number 1 and 2. Eating or drinking intentionally. And we want to do that into details. Number 3, we talk about ta'ammudul qay. Intentionally causing yourself to vomit, to throw up. This is also break your fast, intentionally, if it's done. Number 3, to be in a place where intentionally it will cause a dust, a very thick dust to get to your throat, or even smoke, for that matter. If it gets to your throat intentionally, it makes your fast void. That's number 4. Number 5, we said, also al-baqa al-junub. Intentionally staying, being in the state of janaba. Whether janaba is for haram, la samah Allah, or for halal, doesn't matter. Right? Now, if it happened and the person intentionally, they fail to do ghusl until fajr, that also makes their fasting void. That is number 5. Now, number 6, they say, التلقيح بالماء, to inject yourself with water. People, sometimes I take something to inject myself, so that I can get the water into my system, so I don't have to fast. Like cheating the system, right? It's haram in Islam. You can't do that. And if you do, your fast is what? It's void. Because what happens is, it defeats the purpose of fasting. The purpose of fasting is to fill the hunger, to fill the thirst. And by doing so, you get to learn the hunger and the thirst of the poor people. And because of that, you get the thawab al-ilahi. But if you don't, and you want to cheat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by injecting water into your system so you don't feel hungry, so you don't feel thirst, that makes your fasting void. If it's done intentionally. Ta'ammud. All of this rule, ta'ammud, ta'ammud, ta'ammud. Intentional if it's done. Now, if it happened unintentionally, then our scholars, they say it does not break your fast. Alright? Some scholars, some place, they say, what you have to do, even though it happens, then you have to do only qada ihtiyatan after Ramadan. But there's no kafara, as long as it doesn't happen intentionally. If it happens intentionally, then it breaks your fast, and there is consequence of it too. Right? So that is one of the rulings in Islam that we have to be careful about. One of the rulings that we learn today is ta'ammud al-liqa' bil-ma', to inject yourself with the water, liquid, right, so that I can get into my system, so I don't have to feel hungry. This is not accepted in Islam. And it's not like these people who run and they put the steroid into the system so they can overrun and they don't feel it. No, Islam doesn't allow you either. In the sport, they don't allow you to do that either. Right? And also in Islam, you are not allowed to inject yourself with something just so that you don't have to feel hunger or thirst for that matter. It makes your fast void. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to observe these rulings of Islam and help us to do the best of our ability, inshallah. Before we proceed to the majlis, I will humbly request Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha for Al-Marhum Al-Maghfur Muhammad Abdullah Ibn Muhammad Ishaq. May Allah be pleased with his soul. Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش إلا اللمم إن ربك واسع المغفرة هو أعلم بكم إذ أنشأكم من الأرض وإذ أنتم أجنة في بطون أمهاتكم فلا تزكوا أنفسكم هو أعلم بمن اتقى صدق الله العلي العظيم. This ayah continues to talk in Surah Al-Najm about al-kaba'ir, major sins in Islam. The major sins in Islam is one of the things that Islam continuously teaching us. Not only in some cases don't even do it, Islam teaches don't even get close to it. Because 7 sins, you have to get closer to it in order to do it. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Allah doesn't tell you, وَلَا تَظْلِمُوا. No, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا. Don't even lean. On whom? On ظالم, the unjust or oppressor. Because with that, you might end up becoming ظالم too, or part of the dhulm. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. They say, وَلَا تَزْنِ. No, say, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't even do what we call muqaddimat. The introduction to haram, then it slowly will lead you to haram itself. Islam forbid. That is why you see Islam is constantly reminding us about being careful when it comes to kabair. But tonight we're going to talk about what we call dawafi'ul ma'siyah. Which means, what are the things that causes a person to commit sin? But the sin is haram, no doubt about it. Now, what are the causes that comes together, or in other words, the forces that comes to put a person to commit those kind of sins? Here, our scholar, they mention tools. There are two things. One is called dawafi dhatiyya. Then there is dawafi kharijiyya. The dawafi dhati, which means there are internal forces which forces a person to do what? To do harm, to commit sin. Then there is also what we call the outside forces too, which sometimes pull a person to go and do harm. Tonight we're going to talk about the first one, which is called dawafi dhati. Now, dawafi dhati, which is the first one, right? And also divided into two. One is called dawafi dhatiyatun fitriyya. There are some forces internally, but those internal forces come from where? From your fitra, your nature. Allah put it in there. Because remember, there are those forces that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, He placed those forces inside you. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in Surah Al-Shams, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا. Ilham was given to the nafs. About what? فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَى. There are two forces Allah put inside your nafs. One forces is called forces of Rahman, and they are called Junudur Rahman. Junud, the army of Allah. There is another forces is called Junudu Shaitan. These two forces, Allah, divine, and satanic, they both are placed in your nafs. And these dawafi dhatiyya fitriyya, they constantly pull you and I towards committing major sins. That's number one. Fitriyya. That's number one. Number two, it's called dawafi dhatiyya muktasaba. Muktasaba means was obtained from outside. It wasn't part of you. It wasn't part of the that fitri. No, it was outside, but it was obtained later on. I'm going to give you an example from the Quran for both of these. For dhatiyya fitriyya, you look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ali Imran, Zuyyina linnasi hubbu ash-shahwat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, from the one when we created you, we put these desires into you as a human being. And that's part of our test. And the test is, you are given the two tools. One is the satanic and one is the divine one, right? Now it's up to you how to use those forces. Now if I use these forces of Ar-Rahman and I overcome the soldiers of Satan, then I become the victorious. And that's what the Surah Al-Shams tells you. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. At-tazkiyah here, when you are able to achieve the victory upon the Junud al-Shaytan. Now, if you are by any chance you lose the battle and the soldiers of Shaitan overcome and they achieve victory, then it becomes وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. It becomes tadassi, right? Which means burying your heart and your soul. And we explained this last night. Now, if this is clear, our scholars, they mention this dawafi dhatiyya fitriyya. There are so many of them. Many of them. What is that? Number one, I'm going to mention maybe one or two or three. Number one, they say hubbun nisa. Love for women. And not just love for men for women. No, it's the other way too. Love of women for men. This attraction that Allah created between male and female is one of the dawafi al-dhatiyya al-fitriyya, which means it's a forces that is created within you in your nature, which mostly lead you to commit the major sins. And that is something we have to be extra careful. And that's what the ayah we just read in Surah Al Imran. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهْوَاتِ. Right? What is the shahwat? It said, مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. Love for women. When a person is attracted to someone, opposite gender, if you are not careful, it will lead you to haram, major sins. And not necessarily zina or no. That attraction can cause a person to go beyond that and do some other major sins too. And I'm going to give an example from the Quran. Sometimes from the male side, sometimes from the female side. From the female side, Quran talks about both of them. From the female side, where a woman was attracted to a man which was leading her to do haram, the example is Surah Yusuf, Zulaykha. This woman was married with her husband, al-Malik, the king, but this dawafi' dhatiyya fitriyya led her to want Yusuf for herself. And not only that, now look at this. She was attracted to Yusuf and she wanted Yusuf for herself, for haram. Yusuf didn't do it, right? But it didn't stop there. It caused her to also commit another kabira by lying and ascribing to Yusuf when Yusuf was innocent. Now, attracting to do haram is one thing, but it didn't stop there. She even went ahead to do another haram, but by lying. How did she lie? Quran talks to you about it. She went to the king and she said, after she was the one who invited Yusuf, she went and said, ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوء. Now she's telling Yusuf was the guilty one who went to commit sin when she was the one who was the one. That Hubb nisa can be one of the reasons. That's from the female side. Now let me give you another example from the male side, from the Quran. From the male side also, being attracted to a woman has to be in the line of Islamic teachings. Otherwise, a person can easily fall in the worst haram you never even imagine. Example of it, the king at the time of Prophet Yahya alayhi salam. If you have read the story of Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, why he was killed, there was a woman involved. Which woman? This king of that time of Nabi Allah Yahya alayhi salam, he was attracted to a woman who he should not be attracted to by the teaching of Quran. You know, amazing brothers and sisters. All the religions that came before, they have rules and regulations. Which woman you can marry, which woman you cannot marry. By the way, today, as I'm speaking to you, I was reading a newspaper in New York. There is a group of people today, they are pushing, which started from Australia, they're pushing that people should be given a chance, two adults should be given a chance to marry each other regardless of how they relate to each other. How? I read the article, they go forward. They say even if, let's say, a daughter, la samah Allah, a daughter is attracted to her father, and the girl is adult and matured, and the father is adult and matured, they should be allowed to get married. You know, now this tells you which kind of world we're going to. How down we're going as a human being, right? We're going down. They said, if two people, doesn't matter which relationship they have, blood relationship, they should be allowed. And now they're trying, there's a lawyer in New York who's pushing this agenda. Now, I don't know how far it's going to get, but it's just something to think about. Now, with this, it happened with the Yahya alayhi salam. The king of that time, he wanted to marry a woman who happened to be his relative. That is haram. The Quran have the same thing too. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah put women that is haram for you to marry. حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم وبناتكم وأخواتكم وعماتكم وأخوات. Allah mentioned them. They are haram upon you to marry them. Period. Right? Now, so this man, this king, he was told you cannot marry according to the teaching of Torah. It's haram. He wanted to bribe Nabi Allah Yahya. Nabi Allah Yahya said, no, I'm not going to be bribed because I don't work for this dunya. I work for akhirah. Nabi Allah Dawud said, and Yahya said, no, I'm not going to. Now what happened? As they pushed their agenda, that they want that Yahya alayhi salam to change the teaching of Torah just to sweet them to do their own harm. Now look, this Hubbun Nisa, not only it puts him to do haram, now they want the Yahya to change the book of Allah for their own desire. Yahya said, no, I want you to count the haram of this attraction is doing. Number one, they want to bribe him. He said no. Number two, they want him to change the book of Allah. He said no. Then the woman ended up asking the king to kill Yahya. Because Yahya at some point, as a Nabi, he has to do Amr bil Ma'ruf. So he came out and gave a speech about what is going on with the king and his niece. Right? So what happened? When the woman heard, she felt that Yahya alayhi salam has humiliated her and she wants revenge. And who can do the revenge? The king. And she had the king. Alright? She's in a relationship with him. So she wants him to revenge. Now the king asked her, how do you want me to revenge? Allahu Akbar. She said, the only thing that can make me happy of all of this is when I see the head of Yahya ibn Zakaria in a plate in front of me. She wants to see the head of Yahya alayhi salam on the plate. The king did not hesitate to fulfill his own desire, his satanic desire. Done. Guess what happened? They finally killed Yahya Ibn Zakaria alayhi salam because of this attraction that they have for one another. Not only they committed haram, one haram after haram after haram after haram, and the cause of it is what? Hubbun Nisa. Hubbun Nisa means here attraction on both sides, not just a man attracted to male or a female No, it's both sides. And that is one of the causes or the forces of haram. That is number one. It's called Dawafi al-Kaba'ir. So the forces that push the person to do haram, the major sins. That's number one. Number two, they said one of the causes of haram is Hubbut Ta'am. Hubbut Ta'am. You be shocked, right? Hubbut Ta'am, food. It's necessary, right? Yes, it is. But it can be the reason too. Hubbut Ta'am, love for food, can be one of the major reasons to commit major sins. At-ta'am here can be sharab, what you drink, or what you eat and chew. Doesn't matter. Hubbut Ta'am, both of them. Hubbut Ta'am is fitri, zati, it's within yourself. You need to eat to survive. You need to drink to live. It's necessary, right? But even though it's necessary, it's also one of the dangerous things that if it's not watched carefully, it can mislead you to do something that is haram. And amazing, Quran put all of this example within it for us to see. And this haram, this Hubbut Ta'am, it doesn't matter whether it can be you or me, and it can be at any point. And that is why awliya Allah, they're very, very careful when it comes to food. And when you go to Quran, even Quran tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kulu mimma razaqnakum halalan tayyiba. Allah said, kulu, whatever we're giving to you, eat, but not all of them, huh? It said, mimma razaqnakum, and then halal, and then tayyib. All of this is called shurut Allah is putting for you. Not just because it's food I can just eat or because it's drink I can drink. No. That's why you see Ashab al-Kahf, those youth, right? When they woke up from that long sleep and they wanted to eat, they were hungry. What do they say? ابعثوا ورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فابعثوا ورقكم أحدكم إلى المدينة فليأتكم بأزكى طعام. أزكى أفعال التفضيل, the purest food. There's a pure food, right? And there's a purest. They didn't say فليأتكم بطعام زكي. No, بأزكى طعام, purest one. Now, I'm not here to talk about how does food can affect yourself, your soul, right? But I'm just telling you, this food can lead to haram after haram. One example, our Nabi Allah Adam, what caused him to get out of the heaven? After he lived in heaven for so long, when Allah told him, Uskun anta wa zawjuka al-jannah, I said, فَكُلَا, eat حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا, as you wish. Right? And then he says what? وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Just one food, don't get close to it. So what happened? Adam alayhi salam, he did eat the fruit. And then what happened? He lost all the privileges that he had. Now some scholars are talking about, this is what I call atharul maksiyah. Athar, which is the effect of the sins in our lives. Adam alayhi salam, from the moment he touched that fruit and he ate it, and then he heard the voice of Allah. Alam anhakuma an tilkuma shajara. Didn't I forbid that tree from you? Then what happened? وَطَفِقَا يَخْصِفَانِ مِنْ وَرَقِ الشَّجَرِ. Then Allah exposed them to one another. Then how they used to live in there, they never felt hungry, they never felt thirsty, which Quran said, وَأَنَّكَ أَلَّا تَجُوعَ فِيهَا وَلَا تَعْرَى. You will not feel hungry as long as you're in the heaven. Right? But the moment he ate the tree, he lost all the privileges that Allah gave him. All of them is gone. And what happened? From that one eating the fruit, when he came down here, one sin led to another. How did Habil and Qabil kill one another? After their father ate the tree and came down. And one thing after the other. Even though we believe that what Adam did was tark babil awla. Wasn't a sin. But look at what happened. That is number one. Number two, we are ordered by the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to obey what? Our Prophet and the Imams and the leaders, right? وَأُولُو الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ. When Allah appoints someone and they say, this person is your leader, what do you have to do? Listen, right? Now, food and water can let you not to listen to them. Look in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Bani Israel. Bani Israel, Allah said, I chose for you Talut. Inna Allah ikhtara lakum Taluta malika. I chose Talut to be a king for you. Then Bani Israel is not a question. Anna yakunu lahu al-mulku alayna wa nahnu ahaqqu bil-mulku minhu wa lam yu'ta sa'atan min al-mal. How can he be a king when we deserve more than him and he is not wealthy guy either, right? Like the mizan, the mi'yar, the criteria is about what? Money. Then Allah said to them, Inna Allah astafah. Allah said, I chose him. I made him your king and your leader. So what should he do? You should listen and follow. Now, Talut alayhi salam, as he took them, his people, Bani Israel, to go and fight Jalut, on their way, as they were thirsty, he says to them, do not drink this one. Right? He said, we are thirsty, we want to drink. He said, إِلَّا مَنْ اقْتَرَفَ غُرْفَةً بِيَدِهِ. Except who take the sip. Right? فَمَنْ شَرِبَهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever drink to their satisfaction, not going to be part of me, not going to be my follower. Now listen to the Quran. How many of them help and follow the teaching of this? Quran says, فَشَرِبُوا مِنْهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Majority of them would not listen to him. Very few of them. And what was the cause? Water. This love for food is one of the obstacles. Now, let me tell you a bit more. When they went to fight Jalut, right? Some of them even went there. Now, some of us say, because of this disobedience to the Imam of their time or their leader, what happened? When they get there, and Talut said, okay, now get ready, go fight. They said, La taqata lana bijalut wa junud. They said, no, we cannot fight that Jalut. Allahu Akbar. They refused to go. Dawood alayhi salam have to intervene and talk to them. كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. From one sin to another. And the first sin was what? Drinking against the will of your leader. That is one of the dawafi' of what? Dawafi' al-ma'siyah. What pushes a person to do this. Another one of dawafi' is known as hubbur ri'asa. Hubbur ri'asa means love for power. Love for power? Yes. One of the dawafi'. I want to be something. Yes. Now it doesn't matter. I can kill, I can steal, I can lie, I can cheat, I can do any kind of things, provided that I am the one who is in charge and power. Now you look at this, what is happening in the world today. You look at Myanmar today. An elected woman who was elected, fair and elected, but there's a no. Somebody wanted to become the leader, so what happened? I have to do whatever it takes, even if 700 people have to die. It doesn't matter. And you can see this on the day of Ashura. When Umar bin Sa'ad was asked to come with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what did he say? He said, I am being promised a Ray and Jarjan. And my father went with Imam Ali into the battle, and he saw the weather, the food of Ray and Jarjan, and the way it described it is so touching, and I don't want to lose that. Yeah, Umar bin Saad, are you willing, just because you want to become the king or the governor of Ray and Jarjan, you're willing to kill the grandson of the prophet? You Allah, what are you talking about? If that's going to be an obstacle for me to be a governor, so be it. You want to hear his own words on the day of Ashura? When Hurr bin Yazid al-Ra'i asked him, he said to him, Ya Umar bin Sa'ad, anta qatilur rajul? Are you really going to fight or kill Imam Hussein? You know what he said? He said, Wallah. He said, of course, I swear by Allah I'm fighting him. He didn't even stop them. And he said, قِطَالٌ أَيْسَرُهَا تَطِيرُ فِيهَا الرُّؤُوسِ وَالْأَيْدِي. If you don't know, let me tell you even more. A fighter, the heads and the hands will be flying in this battlefield. That's Umar bin Sa'ad. Allahu Akbar. Ata'arif, do you know this person that you want to fight? Yes, I know. Who is he? Hussein, Ibn Ali, Ibn Fatima, Ibn Rasulullah. Do you know all of this? Yes. But why do you want to do all of this? It doesn't matter. Because I want to become a governor. Hubbur ri'asa. And you can see how it happens in elections in many of countries. Just election to become a mayor, to become a governor, to become a president. How people do one another. Kill, destroy, lie, cheat, steal, you name it, just to become a voice or a power on a tree. That's called hubbur ri'asa. This Hubb al-Ri'asa got the people to create what we call today Ashura or Karbala. That on the day of Ashura, you see these people, Imam Hussein tells them, انظروا غربا وشرقا هل تجدون ابن بنت نبي غيري. Look left and right. Look at the east. Look at the west. If you can find someone who happened to be the grandson of the Prophet beside me. You know what they said? We don't care. And finally, they committed this unforgettable, this senseless crime that the history can never forget. And the cause of it is what? Hubb al-Ri'as. On the day of Ashura, after they killed all the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they come, nobody is left among the companions. Imam Hussein alayhi salam then made a call, Hal min nasirin yansuruna. Then a young man came out, which Imam Hussein himself described him, أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسول الله. He came forward and he said, أنا ناصرك يا ابن رسول الله. And here is the touchy part, brothers and sisters. You know, the bond between Imam Hussein and Ali al-Akbar is not just the bond of a father and a son. It's about an obedient servant of Allah who was trying to be a truthful follower of Allah by obeying his father and the mission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali al-Akbar went to the battlefield and he fought and fought and fought, came back to the father and he said, Ya Aba al-Atash al-Atash. Now it seems like we all can relate to Ali al-Akbar tonight. Al-Atash, thirsty. Have you think about it? When you were thirsty all day, when you were fasting, Ali al-Akbar passed 3 days, there is no water in the tent of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When he came back, he said, Al-Aba al-Atash al-Atash. Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam look at him and he said, Bunayya, Ya'azzu ala abik, is so dear to your father that you're asking something that he does not have. But very soon you will meet your grandfather Rasulullah and your grandfather Amirul Mu'mineen, and they will give you the water, you will never get thirsty. Ali al-Akbar walked back to the battlefield. But as he was walking, Allahu Akbar, Imam Hussein reminded him about his mother. Have you said goodbye to your mother? He came back and said goodbye to the mother. And the mother grabbed her son Ali al-Akbar as she doesn't want him to go. She wants him to stay. She kept kissing him. She kept smelling her son until جاء هاتف من السماء. The call came from the heaven talking to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. إن الملائكة لا تطيقون. The angel cannot stand the scene of Ali al-Akbar in the mud. Ali al-Akbar went to the battlefield. Very soon he fought and fought and fought. And finally Ali al-Akbar was surrounded by the enemies of Allah, where one of the horses came and dragged Ali al-Akbar to the middle of the enemies. And all those enemies, when the horse passes around beside them or next to them, they struck Ali al-Akbar. The horse kept taking Ali al-Akbar from one person to another, from the circle, from one location to another, until Ali al-Akbar called his father, Assalamu alayka ya Aba. When Muslim said, the narrator said that we saw Imam Hussein when he heard his son's call, he said he jumped like a lion to rescue his son. He got to his son, he picked Ali al-Akbar, he was in the arm of his father. In his final moment, as he was looking at him, Ali al-Akbar said with a very thin voice, هذا جدي رسول الله وهذا جدي أمير المؤمنين. These are my grandfathers, Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam the Prophet. They are here with the water as you promised, Ya Aba Abdullah. After that, then he looked at his father and he said, they're asking, Halumma ilayna, ya Aba Abdullah, come quickly, we're waiting for you. Ali al-Akbar, right after those words, the narrator says he closed his eyes and departed from this world. But the moment he closed his eyes and died in the arm of Aba Abdullah, the narrator said, Saha Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam screamed a scream that nobody ever heard. Imam Hussein did that kind of scream. And he says, Bunayya Ali ba'daka dunya la'afa. My son Ali, there is no worth of this world after your death. And the narrator said, Raja al-Husayn muhdawda bad-dar kasir al-kalb. He returned with broken heart. As he came to the tent, he says, Ya Bani al-Muttalib, go and pick your brother Ali al-Akbar, فَإِنَّهُ لَا طَاقَةَ لِي فِي حَمْلِهِ. I have no strength to pick Ali al-Akbar. They ask him, Walima ya Aba Abdullah? He said, Kullama rafatu janiba, tasaqat al-janib al-akhar. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. Wal 'aqibatu lil muttaqin. سورة المباركة الفاتحة فد مرحوم محمد عبد الله ابن محمد إسحاق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Our brother